What is your biggest regret in your sporting career?
My biggest regret would definitely be not finding my grit when I played rugby. I knew I had talent and I didn't apply it enough. The first emotion, looking back, it's relief that the race was over because of so much hurt. You've never rode so hard in your whole life. And then it's like you finally have a breath. And I was like, Jen, we did it. We won gold.
What would you go back and tell your 16-year-old self?
You don't have to be perfect. Perfectionism is a load of shit. I originally had 10 surgeries in 21 days to save my leg from amputation. Every surgery there was looking for hope. It was just hope that you'd still keep your leg, but with that leg you kept your identity.
Welcome to 4TG. Today's guest, Nikki Ayers, is an incredible person. She is resilience defined. Nikki was well on her way to becoming an Australian rugby player, which was her dream. But in 2016, life had another plan for her. She was involved in a rugby tackle and dislocated her knee, severed a major artery, and caused nerve damage and compartment syndrome, which led to her undergoing 16 operations and nearly lost her leg. But instead of giving up on sport, she became a para-athlete and found a new love, which was rowing, a sport she had never done before. And she went on to become Australia's first ever Paralympic para-rowing gold medalist in the 2024 Paris Paralympics. Only recently, Nikki has retired from rowing, not because she had to, but because she finally decided she was allowed to after taking time away from sport and her job to focus on herself. Now, this is such an incredible story, and this is something that I think every single one of you will learn something from. Sometimes it can be sport that takes a lot from you, and sometimes sport can give a lot to you. But it's about figuring out what is best for your mental health and best for your mental well-being. And sometimes that is a decision to step away from your sport and maybe go into a new sport. Nikki has had the courage to do that and is something that she's looking to do potentially again as she figures out what is next for her. So please do us a favor and share this message forward. You have absolutely no idea how much one story can change someone's trajectory and change their life. So please like and subscribe to 4TG, share this forward with someone who needs to hear it, and make sure that this conversation is heard by as many people as possible, not only in the para space, but in every sporting space and for every gender. This is a truly incredible story, and I can't wait for you all to hear it. So without further ado, Nikki Ayers, welcome to the 4TG podcast.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Kylie. I'm looking forward to it.
I'm very much looking forward to this chat too, because only recently you decided to step back from rowing, which I'm sure must have been a tricky decision at the best of times. But I think from what you've already said, it was a decision that was probably lingering for a while, and you've put yourself first, which is, it's a hard thing to do, especially when, a lot of your identity becomes your sport, but you've obviously had time to think about that and you're putting yourself first, which is such a great message for a lot of young athletes to hear as well.
Yeah, definitely. My journey into para sports has been very unexpected, and one that has very much taught me to control what you control and make the most of it and find the silver linings. And, rowing at the elite level for 8 years and being a nurse and then doing my midwifery studies as well. It wasn't kind of till I stopped post the games and had a break and went home and did some travel and, did exactly that and put myself first and my well-being. I realized that rowing wasn't a space where I had a level of psychological safety that I wanted. And I felt like it was beginning to take more than it was giving me. It gave me, the first time I got into rowing, it gave me identity. It gave me purpose. It gave me a community as a person with a disability, which I didn't realize how much I needed that and how much of a difference that made. In times where I didn't see a way out, rowing was there. Rowing gave me so much. It's given me friends. It's given me opportunity and, it's helped mold me into the person I am today. So it definitely wasn't an easy decision, but it's a decision that I don't regret and I'm looking forward to what's next.
Absolutely. And, to not only go back to sport after what happened to you, but to go back at such a high pressure level and, an elite level, it takes a lot of mental strength to do that. So, you've given a lot in your whole life for sport. And I think it's great that you're putting yourself first, because sometimes we can keep going and burn out and actually resent sport. Whereas I feel like you've hit the mold now where, you're putting yourself first and I hope that you can pivot into something else, or if you choose not to, that you can look back and be so proud of everything that you've achieved within those how many years that you've been doing sport now, since you've probably been only young. Is that right?
Yeah, as long as I remember, playing rugby league, playing anything with a ball, essentially. Dad played rugby league growing up, so you always see him playing that. And then my eldest brother, my elder sister, and then my little brother, we always played ball sports. So sports has been a huge part of our family. We're not a very creative, artistic family. We're a sporty family. So played sports for as long as I can remember. So it's been a really cool journey along the way. And it's such a great community to be involved in sport. You make friends for life and you learn so much about yourself and you develop skills that you don't realize at the time. You're so interchangeable into business and jobs as well that helps you in every day.
Yeah, sport it's such a vehicle to life, and you learn
Yeah.
so many skills that you will use in day-to-day life, in your relationships, in your workplace, in everything. But by the sounds, you never know, your next chapter you might actually get into arts and crafts.
Maybe baking counts as arts and crafts. I mean, I make some pretty rogue cakes for my little nieces for their birthdays, so that's about as
Alright.
artistic as I'll get.
Yeah, well, that's definitely a good start.
Yeah.
Before we get into the crux of your story, we're going to kick off with some Snap Fitness rapid fire questions where I'm going to ask you
Yeah,
three
okay.
questions and whatever comes to mind first, you just shoot with. You ready to roll?
Okay. Yeah, I'm terrible at this. I'm not a on the spot person. I'm a freezer.
All right, let's see how you go. So, number one, what is something that not many people know about you?
Okay. Moment of vulnerability. I absolutely love Disney movies, and almost every single kids movie that I watched, I cry in. The storylines get me, and I've got absolutely no shame in just letting the emotions rip. So it was good. I was watching a movie the other day on the weekend, and my little niece is crying, and I'm crying, and my sister's kind of laughing at us a bit. I'm like, I don't care. It's such a good story. So yeah, definitely happy to shed a few tears on any Disney movie or any kids movie.
I can completely relate to that. I think Disney movies are the best and they have the best
Yeah,
soundtrack as well. So,
yeah,
I get around that.
100% they do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is your biggest regret in your sporting career?
My biggest regret would definitely be not finding my grit when I played rugby. For so long in rugby, my goal was to put on the green and gold Wallaroo jersey. I knew I had talent and I didn't apply it enough. When I was early in my rugby career, I was too busy in the party scene and enjoying that side of it and the fun of it and kind of just expected someone to give me the jersey because I knew I had the talent and I was watching people get selected and it's like I'm better than them, but I wasn't applying myself. So my biggest regret is definitely not finding that grit earlier and actually doing everything I could to earn that jersey instead of waiting for it to be handed to me.
Yeah, that is a very good one. And finally, what would you go back and tell your 16-year-old self?
It would definitely be around you don't have to be perfect. Perfectionism is a load of shit, really, to put it frankly. Growing up, my biggest fear was being wrong because I didn't want to be judged. And, from that stemmed into this perfectionism that I had for so long. And that definitely ruled my life in a way that I missed out on opportunities and missed out on friendships and kind of became a person that I didn't really like when I got to the point where I was able to process and reflect. So it's definitely you don't have to be perfect. There's no such thing. Just find who you are and be happy with that person because if you're not happy, you're not going to enjoy life to its fullest.
Yeah, I think that's something that we all sort of come to grips with eventually. And I think society puts a lot of pressure on us, especially as women, to be
Yeah.
perfect and to fit a
Yeah.
certain mold. And that really is crippling because you miss a lot of your years just being yourself. And sometimes we find out later on in life, and some people, it's too late and they've lost the best years and they're always trying to be someone else and they're not living their authentic life. And it's just a waste of a life, really, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. It is so much. I know there's definitely athletes out there who go to an Olympic or Paralympic games and they win a gold medal and they're still not happy with the performance, because we're aiming for perfectionism, which it's not realistic. Yeah, can you ever achieve it? Because the goalposts always get moved. In rowing, you strive to have that perfect stroke or that perfect race, but I don't think there is such thing as that. So it's you've just got to be able to get out there and do your best and be good enough on the day, good enough to cross that finish line first. And Yeah, so I'm so glad, like, looking back, I don't know if I still had that perfectionism, I don't know if I would have like, been as successful as I was, but then potentially, like, crossing that finish line with Jed, maybe I might not have been able to look back on it and be like, "This is amazing, we just achieved this,"
Mm,
and enjoy that moment for what it was, where instead I could have been like, "Okay, well, I've stuffed up this stroke," because a couple of meters before the light, I actually caught a crab, like, I got my all stuck in the water. I'm like, lucky I got it out, but it's like, I could have been just stressing on that instead of enjoying the moment and celebrating what we achieved. And I think that's the important moments in time where perfectionism can really take more from you than what you think it's giving you.
100%. And I'm gonna just throw in a bonus question here just because I
All
think you
right.
can handle it. Do you believe that everything happens for a reason?
Yeah, I do. There's times I don't, but my injury is a great example of it. In 2016, I definitely had found that grit and was going for it. And the injury I had was so traumatic, and I would never wish it upon anyone. And there's long lasting effects from that. But trying to find that silver lining, I wouldn't have had the opportunities that had. I wouldn't have become a para athlete. I wouldn't have won a gold medal if I was still living that life beforehand. So I think things do happen for a reason, and it's just about what you do with it, and
Mm.
how you can make the most of it as well. So
Definitely. I think, you can look at it as in you're the victim and you can say how hard done by you are, which
yeah.
absolutely you were, but you also chose to see the opportunity in it, to see the change in it. And you had a pivot in life that I bet you weren't expecting to become a professional rower. So, it just goes to show the power of opportunity in loss.
Yeah, 100%, and a big part was like my family and support to get me through that, to be able to find those silver linings. But I remember, I'd have metal around my legs, I had external fixations for over 6 months in the 12-month period after my knee. And I went to the gym. I got out of hospital. I think it was 1 or 2 weeks after I got out of my first 8 weeks in hospital, 4 weeks of that in intensive care. And I was going to the gym on crutches with my sister, and people are like, "What are you doing here?" I'm like, "Well, I've still got like one good leg and two good arms." So it was just like about finding those silver linings and the positives. And it's like, yeah, cool, I have a leg that I can't use, but I have the rest of my body, and there's still stuff that I can do with that. So like, let's make the most of it and do it. So for sure.
Mm. So take me back to 2016. So you're playing rugby,
Mm.
you're obviously smashing it, you're captaining the Brumby Sevens team. What was your life like before that tackle?
Life was good. Life was busy. So I was playing rugby, representing, yeah, ACT in the sevens and captaining that side for the last couple of seasons as well. I was also representing the ACT in the 15 side. I did have, I think it was about 2 seasons away from 15s and just focus on sevens and my nursing career as well. I was also rowing surf boats at the time. So we trained in Canberra and rowed for a club down the coast, the Braley Surfers Surf Life Saving Club, and competed in George Bass Marathon. So I did two of them. So you row 190 kilometers over 7 days from Bateman's Bay to Eden in the open ocean. So
Jesus.
that's it's a pretty intense, crazy, wild marathon to do. So I was doing that as well. And then I was studying as well. I was doing my postgraduate diploma in critical care while I was working in intensive care and senior leadership roles there as well. So life was busy, but loving it. So that was kind of life off the field. And then in 2016, as we spoke about a little bit, I had the realization that year that I had to actually earn that Wallaroos jersey. And so I had conversation with my coach, who had coached me for almost the whole 10 years I played rugby in Canberra for. And he's like, all right, if you want it, this is what we're going to do. So I was doing extra skill sessions, extra fitness sessions, like really having a crack in the gym. And I was like, all right, 2016, this is going to be my year. So it was looking great. Like I was getting to be the fittest I'd ever been, the most mentally prepared for it. And then we came out to our first preseason game in 2016 against the Royals at Barking Park. And that's where history was made, in a way, I guess.
Yeah. So tell us about the tackle itself and everything that happened after that, because it was a long
Yeah.
story. Well, obviously, an injury is an injury, but it went completely wrong, didn't it?
Yeah, yeah, straight away. So it was the same, we're playing Royals and we were up and we were essentially unstoppable. Like the team was having a great game and I was having an absolute blinder of a game as well. And a teammate and I, we made a break down the sideline and I remember looking to my left and seeing someone coming. So I looked and offloaded the ball and then I got tackled and I just remember instantly I just screamed and it was a scream that I didn't even know my body was capable of. And I remember as I was falling to the ground, I looked down and I could see like my foot facing one way and my knee facing the other. And like I had pins and needles straight away and my nurse brain kicked in. I was like, this is not good. Like something bad has happened. My sister was playing on the same team as well. And she said I was rolling around and screaming that much. One of my teammates jumped on me to get me to stop. And everyone knew it was bad. Like people knew me and the way I was screaming. It was awful and the pain. I wouldn't let anyone touch my leg. We eventually got to hospital and eventually had that original scan, which they showed that I had what they called a dissection. So there was a big crack in the main artery on my leg of about 15 centimeters, where I was getting no blood supply to the lower half of my leg. And there it was determined that I needed to be rushed to surgery. But before that, I had developed compartment syndrome and that was one, like I thought the pain from my knee was awful, the worst pain I've felt, but the compartment syndrome, I remember the moment it kind of really just kicked in and I was just like, I feel like there's a bomb in my leg and it's exploded. The pressure and the pain from that was just awful. And so that's kind of like the moment the muscle had died, essentially. So yeah, the call was made that Nikki had to get rushed to surgery and probably one of the most defining moments that I don't think I'll ever forget. And I picture it like I can picture being there in theatres. I got wheeled down to theatres and I looked at the vascular surgeon and I said to him, am I going to lose my leg? And he just looked at me and said, yes. And I absolutely bored my eye. And that's the last thing I remember before getting put to sleep for that first surgery. And then I woke up in the intensive care unit where I was working as a nurse. And one of my colleagues was there. And I don't remember a lot, but I remember waking up and like leaning down and feeling my leg and my leg was there. But I didn't know like how hard the journey was going to be still having my leg from that point on. And then so I was in intensive care. I had my mum and my sister there pretty much every day. And then my nana Pam was there quite a lot as well. They were definitely my rocks and my support network. And I ended up being in the intensive care unit for 4 weeks. I originally had 10 surgeries in 21 days to save my leg from amputation. So every time they went in to do a surgery, it was to hopefully close up my leg, but they'd go in and find there was more dead muscle and more dead muscle. So they had to keep on removing that. And then there was infections as well. So yeah, that was quite a lot. It was almost like a surgery every second day, turning 21 days. So that was like very much a challenge in itself, being able to mentally pull through that. But I remember sometime at that point, there was one of my bosses and she was my boss in ICU and I looked up to her. She was just this nurse that I idolized. So I was like, when I pictured myself being a nurse, it was her because whatever came through the doors, she could handle it. And she said to me, Nikki, she's like, you've got to control what you can control. And I didn't really seek in that exact conversation. And later on, it really hit me what she meant by that. And I took it as in I couldn't control that my injury had happened. I can't control that, my rugby career is over. I had a doctor telling me I was never going to walk again. And I was like, I'm going to show him. Yeah. And so it was like, yeah, I can't control it. But what I can control, like I have a good leg. I have 2 good arms. I can go to rehab. I can still do weights. I can try and make the most of this. It wasn't me to be someone just sit in a bed and do nothing and feel sorry for myself. It's like, okay, what can I do now? Like, how can I make the most of it? And it was about becoming proactive, not reactive as well with that. So I ended up being in hospital for 8 weeks, 4 weeks in ICU and then 4 weeks on the ward before I got discharged home. And then over the next 9 months, I ended up having 16 surgeries in total to remove fixations, to put new fixations on, to clear up infections that I was having. And then eventually my last surgery was my knee reconstruction that I had, which was a pretty cool moment in time. So that was like a 9 to 12 months journey from the first tackle that I had that changed my life.
Mm, that's unbelievable. Like having only been through 2 knee surgeries, and I hope that's it. It was hard mentally, not just physically, to
Yeah.
come back from. So 16 surgeries. What does that actually do to you mentally and with your relationship with your own body and who you thought you were? Because after each surgery, a
Yeah.
little bit of your identity is sort of taken from you.
Yeah, every surgery there was like looking for hope. Originally it was like hope that I'd still have my leg with every surgery. And then it was just hope that, you know, you'd still keep your leg, but with that leg, you kept your identity. I'd always been a person without a disability. I'd never known what it'd be like personally to live with a disability, like seeing people. And it was so much already just contemplating the fact that I didn't think I'd ever play sports again as well. And so mentally, it wasn't thinking too far ahead for me. Like each surgery, it was like, okay, let's get through this surgery and then we'll reassess and see what we do next. But for me, I had so much going on. So every day it was about trying to get in enough nutrition. Like I was on a lot of opioids, a lot of pain medication, anything to stop the pain. And so I didn't have much of an appetite. So a lot of it was about forcing myself to eat or working to get nutrition in because I knew we needed that for healing as well from all the surgeries. And so it was little things like before every surgery, I'd have a golden gay time. And so whoever the nurse was on, they would come in, they'd have a golden gay time with me and my family. And so that's like little things we would celebrate. It's like, cool, we're going in for surgery number 10 tomorrow or something, but here's something to celebrate as well. And so that's kind of what I developed, which was how to celebrate the little wins. Like you got to celebrate the good and the bad. And then so for my 10th surgery, we ended up throwing a party. We had a big barbecue for my friends and colleagues from ICU. My sister brought in her dog and we just had a big party. And that was like my afternoon after I just had my 10th surgery. And so that was a really awesome moment in time. It wasn't just celebrating that I still had my leg. It was celebrating the friends and the family that I had around me, my community that was supporting me to get through it every day as well. And so for me, the mental challenge was just always like trying to find those positives and things to celebrate instead of dwelling on the negative and dwelling that I'm never going to play rugby again. Like dwelling that I'm never going to be a Wallaroo. It wasn't about that because that just starts a downward spiral for me. And then I had my family always just helping me find those positives as well and to focus on that because they could see me going downhill into a spiral before I could. And
Mm.
so they were really awesome as well. And then it kind of got to a point where they were like, Nikki, you need to speak to someone. And, I thought I was okay. And there was one day, like a couple of months down the track, like I didn't want to get out of bed. My sister's like, you need to get out of bed. You've been doing this for days. And I was like, no, I don't want to. And so she just walked in. She literally just stripped me naked, picked me up, put clothes on me and took me outside. She's like, you're getting outside because she could see how much I was struggling without me really knowing what it was. And it was just like, in that moment, I was like, I'm not okay. Like, I really actually need to speak to someone. And that's, the first time I reached out because there was so much stigma about talking to someone about your feelings where if I didn't do that, I don't know where I would be today. And it helped me on that journey of recovery and being able to, become the best version of me and embrace that and not be ashamed. I have two psychologists that I speak to regularly as well, and they've been absolutely integral to my recovery, me becoming the person and the champion that I am today.
Mm.
Um, yeah, I think does that kind of like capture most of that question?
Absolutely, it does. And obviously, there's a lot to unpack there. But one other thing that I
Mhm.
wanted to touch on, you obviously being an ICU nurse. So, sort of the
Yeah.
irony of then you being on the other side. But I remember chatting offline and you said that your leg, it could have been prevented if action was taken earlier. How is that as a pill? How is that as a pill to swallow, knowing that things could have been different?
Yeah, it's hard at first, the first time you realize that, because I think when it was really hard was when I was holding on to that identity and that rugby career, that dream of being a Walroon wearing that green and gold. And so it was really hard, but then it comes back to the control what you control. Like it is what it is. It happened and it was really hard knowing that potentially if things were done a bit earlier, it could have been different, but that wasn't the outcome. So it was just being able to change that mindset because then that takes away opportunities for you. It takes away things that you could do because you just get so bogged down in all these what ifs where it's not what if. It's, this is the reality and I still have my leg. I still have this. So now let's make the most of it. So it was super hard at first because it took so much away from me. But looking back now, it's just like it is what it is. I was never going to be able to change it. I've worked in the hospital system. I know about the challenges.
Mm.
And I was super lucky. Like don't talk a lot, I guess. It was my colleagues on the night from ICU as well. They were coming down to ED. They were doing a lot for me. They were helping me out. Like one of the wardsmen from ICU, he wheeled me to my first X-ray. He wheeled me to my scan. So I was so fortunate to have that as well. And so it's just about, making the most of it and appreciating it, not sitting thinking, well, what if? Because then that just takes away from opportunities.
That's right. And did your sports psych and psychologists in general, did they help work through that sort of resentment that I'm sure you would have
Yeah.
felt otherwise?
Yeah, 100%. I didn't have the tools. Like I didn't know how to deal with that. All I know is I was this girl with this dream to be a Wolverine. That was my only dream, and that was taken away and it wasn't my choice. The hardest thing is it not being your choice and having to find a way to come to terms and be okay with that. And so, yeah, speaking with my psychologist then was like a huge, and there's so much trauma to deal with. Like you had to get through the initial trauma as well from that before you can get down to the real crux of it and the nitty and gritty of that as well. So they were definitely a huge support in being able to do that and change that mindset. And because without being able to do that, I wouldn't have been able to make the most of it. I probably wouldn't have gone along to the Train for Tokyo session and been open to the idea of, hey, actually, I am a person with a disability and go try para sports and do that as well. So, yeah, it's an interesting mind game, but it's very important to have good support and people you trust around you and know you, and that can push you a little bit as well and challenge you and challenge your thinking. And so you can become a better version or you can make the most of something as well.
Yeah, and you even see it with other athletes who have their injuries has, cut their career short and they walk around with a chip on their shoulder and there's obviously a lot of resentment there and a lot of blame and things like that. And they haven't gone and seen a psychologist. And I'm such a big proponent that there doesn't need to be a problem to go and see a psychologist. The
Yeah,
stigma around it is
100%.
definitely getting better. And it's even the past 5 or 10 years is becoming so much more mainstream. But it's the same as if you'd go see a physio for an injury. Like, you should be going and seeing someone for your mental health because without good mental health, you can't be a good athlete. You can't sustain a great athletic career. So I just wish more people would not see it as a shameful thing to do and go and see it as something a proactive thing to do, which is actually going to enhance your career.
Yeah, it's a tool. It's a tool, and it might not necessarily have to be a psychologist. It's about building those relationships and connection in your community and have someone around you that you can go speak to. Or, you sometimes have different people that you speak to different things. But for me, like my relationships I have with my psychologist is like the safest space that I ever have. They're the people where I can truly be honest and vulnerable and not feel judged. And they're relationships that I'm so grateful for. And they've helped me through so much as well. And that's helped in my relationships outside of that safe space where I can build on that vulnerability and that trust and be able to have more vulnerable conversations with other people within my circles as well. And I think this ties into how Jen and I were so successful was I had gotten to a point where I was embracing vulnerability and we were both able to create a safe space and have conversations that we might not have with other people, but we knew it was integral to us and how we could build trust and become the best partnership to achieve goals. And yeah, for sure, there's still a stigma associated with it. And like I am sharing my story because I think our well-being as athletes and as humans is not more important than any medal you're going to win. And I think the sooner people realize that, they're going to be better athletes and they're going to be better humans as well. And people in society need to remember that as athletes, at the start of anything, we are humans. And I think that gets forgotten a lot. People have a bad performance. They go into some world championships or Olympics or Paralympics as favorites and they don't perform as well and they just get judged straight away. And it's like, we're humans, we feel emotions, we have things going on, we have things influence us. We're not robots. And I think that gets forgotten a lot as well. And we need to put ourselves first because other people aren't going to do it for us.
Absolutely. And that also comes down to coaches and parents and using person first coaching and not just seeing them as an athlete. Because as you say, when you're out in the field or out in the water, you're still a person and you've got 1,000 other things going on in your life. You've got emotions. You're not a robot or a machine. And there's no way
Mhm.
that we can always be at 100%. Like, that is physically impossible. So the more that we take into consideration everything else that's going on in an athlete's life, that they are a whole person, the better they're going to be in the field, on the field, in the water, on the water, wherever it may be. And that's something I do think that gets overlooked, as well as people saying, well, you're an athlete. That's a privilege. That's something, that really, yes, it absolutely is a privilege, but there's still a lot of pressure and a lot of sacrifice that goes into being an athlete.
Yeah, so much. And it's so hard. Like, I think for people to understand that as well, it's like we get put in a pedestal within society. Um, and people do forget that. Like, I'm a nurse midwife. So, an example for me is like when I had one of my first days on my own as a graduate midwife, my lady, the baby dropped her heart rate and we had to get rushed to surgery for a Cat 1 surgery. And like, I didn't know what to do and I didn't know what caused it. And I just stood there thinking I was a failure the whole time. And that just doesn't end there.
Mm,
That emotional toll comes home with you. And then you sit on that and you think about that. And then you got to go up to training. And it's like you're thinking you're a failure as a midwife. And then you're bringing that into the boat as well. And so it's things like that people forget about too. Like we all have things going on outside of the boat, off the footy field and things. And I think the sooner people realize that, and athletes realizing that if you have people in your support network that aren't positive and aren't bringing out the best in you, you don't have to have them around you. Like you
mm.
can make change as well. And we want people to see the best in us and bring out the best in us because that's how we're going to be the best athletes and be the best version of us as well and enjoy the process and enjoy the journey the most as well. I think I went on a little tangent there, but yeah.
No, let's stick with the tangent though. What can clubs, teams, coaches, parents, all our external environment, what can they do to ensure that we have that psychological safety that you touched on earlier?
I think the biggest thing is just checking in. Just check in and be like, "Are you okay?" Is one of the biggest things because people just think that we're robots, we do all this, and there's sometimes we're not. There's days where I would just sit there just wanting someone to ask me if I was okay because I just didn't have that confidence and that vulnerability to say I'm not okay as well. And so if something feels off or even if it's not, just regularly check in and you don't have to have the answers. All you have to do is be like, "What can I do for you?"
Mm.
Kind of thing. Sometimes it's just a set of ears to talk about things that are going on, or sometimes it might be just reassurance. This is what I'm feeling. Like, is this normal? Am I okay? Or, am I thinking about this too much? And, these people around us, our family and our friends are the people who get to know us the most. And the same with coaches. Like, if you have a really good coach that you have a great relationship and a great rapport with, you see them more than you probably see your friends and family. And so to be able to have a relationship where you can go up with them and just go, I'm not okay today is great. So I think coaches, it's a lot about, emotional intelligence and empathy and embracing that and bringing that to your relationships with the athlete, but getting to know them and understand them as well. And it's things about, with male coaches and female athletes, learn about periods and the menstrual cycle, so if I could go to my coaches, I had a male coach, Nick Mitchell, and I had Christine McLaren, who's our female coach. And the days I would get like my period and I'd be in the fetal position, I go, okay, I'm not okay today. I'm in bed. I'm in the fetal position. And their first reply, especially Nick Mitchell, would be like, what can I do for you? It
Mm.
wasn't like, okay, well, you need to do this training session. We've got to do this. It's like, what can I do for you? Let us know when you're feeling better. We can reassess training and do it. So it's just little things like that make such a big impact as well for everyone within that athlete like circle of trust and support as well.
Mm. Absolutely. And just knowing that you've got that safe environment, and you're not
Mm.
going to be punished for missing that day's training. Like, you're gonna go in and you're gonna give that next day 110% because you're like, I feel like I belong here, I'm safe here, and people actually care about me as a person. You are going to perform so much better and want to perform better for those people too.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. 100%. It's about creating that safety for sure. Because like as an athlete, you push yourself so much. Like if you've got a cold, you're going to push yourself to the point that you're on your deathbed because you know you've got to do these sessions. But if you have that safety within you go, hey, I'm feeling this, you can modify things. And instead of like being off the water for 2 weeks, you might only be off for a couple of days or something, can do better with that. So I think that's like what coaches and support people need to do is build better relationships so you can have athletes who don't do that to themselves and push themselves to the point where they end up being worse off. You can have those open, honest conversations about athletes and, things that do come and go that might affect them, or like regular things. Like as women, we get a menstrual cycle essentially once every month that does impact training, especially at the elite level. So instead of having to push through that, have conversations and understand it and get to know the athlete. Just go, well, what can I do for you? How can I help you? They're not too hard questions to ask.
Yeah, absolutely. And then another thing on that, which I was guilty of, is the duty of yourself. If someone asks you, are you okay, and you're not okay, to say that you're not okay. Like I, for so long, held this badge of honor that, no, I'm fine. I've got everything together. And
Yeah.
then I would have a massive breakdown because I wanted everyone to think I'm so tough and, I'm stoic. But really, that comes at a cost to it. So it's that accountability for yourself to say that you're not okay and to be okay with being vulnerable. And being vulnerable honestly opens so many doors and deepens relationships and just makes you so much more of a, I don't know, just an approachable person. Like when you speak to someone who is openly vulnerable and you're vulnerable with them, it makes them feel safe to be vulnerable with you. And just the deepness of connections that you have will change your life.
Yeah, 100%. It is. It's like vulnerability has been something that has seen as to being shameful growing up, but you can't have vulnerability without courage, as Brene Brown would say, and a lot of people don't realize that. With vulnerability, there is courage and there's bravery in being able to do that. And that's one of the biggest things I've learned on my journey is embracing vulnerability. And I'm so glad that I am someone who can now do that because I wouldn't be who I am today without it. I wouldn't have won a gold medal with Jed if I wasn't able to be vulnerable and open up and trust him and the people I had with him. I moved from Canberra. I moved to Adelaide when I came down here in 2023 to a place where I had no friends. Like I knew Jed, but I didn't really know anyone else. I left my whole support network. I left everyone. And so I was kind of forced to do that, but it was a choice that I made. I wanted to be vulnerable because I knew I didn't have anyone else, but it was going to make us stronger. And I trusted him to do that. And there's no shame in being vulnerable, no matter what it is. And, I'm definitely guilty of that, knowing I'm not okay and just having this feeling, this anxiety, and just waiting for someone to do it. Where if you have that proactiveness and your people you can go to, there's even lifelines around, like, that you can call as well. And there's no shame in saying you're not okay
Mm,
because it makes you a better human to be able to do that.
absolutely. Now, if we go to the rowing chapter in your life, what was it like when you first heard that you were called a para athlete instead of just an athlete?
I think when I was first called a para-athlete, I didn't even know I was a person with a disability. So that definitely would have been a point where I was like, oh, wait, I have a disability now. Because it's not like someone comes up to you and goes, Nikki, you're now a person with a disability. You kind of just got to figure it out. Like I remember sitting in my lounge room watching the Rio 2016 Paralympics and never thinking that was going to be me. I didn't know my injury was a permanent one that was technically a disability. And so at first it was just like foreign, something I definitely didn't embrace and didn't know the true meaning of what it actually meant. But now it's something I'm so proud of. If I go somewhere, like I went to a function the other day and on my name badge it just had Nikki Ayers. And I was like, okay, where's my PLY that says Paralympian? And like my OAM as well. But it's like I always put my PLY with my name because I'm so proud to be a Paralympian. It's like to be a part of this mob and this community where you're accepted for exactly who you are and you're not judged is just a privilege to be a part of that and to be able to wear the green and gold at that level amongst all the other Paralympians that have come ahead before us and the trailblazers. It's something to be so proud of now as well. So yeah, I definitely didn't embrace it at first, didn't understand it, but now I'm so proud to call myself a para athlete and be a part of this community.
And it's so good that you're doing so much around the awareness of it because, again, it is awareness, which is a big thing. And when you see heroes, Paralympians, and they're getting more media coverage and, greater stories behind it, it's only going to help younger para athletes to also, step into their greatness and to allow them to be truly proud of it because it is something to be proud of. Like you've overcome a lot of adversity more so than any athlete. So, yeah, it's definitely a badge of honor. And I'm glad that you're doing a lot to raise that awareness for it.
Yeah, thanks. For sure. It's like that when you compare to women in sport. Like I remember growing up, I had to stop playing rugby league when I was 12 because I was female and there's no all girls team. But at that period of like my life, I don't remember any female athlete role models at all, let alone like someone with a disability. One of the first female athletes I remember is Louise Savage from the Paris Paralympics, and that was a person with disability back then, and Lane Beachley was probably one of the other first females. And because the spectrum of disabilities is so vast, it's about getting that awareness out there and role models so kids growing up can see that there is someone like them or someone with the same disability as them going out there, being them and still achieving greatness, not being told they can't do it because they're different. They're being told they can do it and they're embraced because they are different. And there's like the para units and there's institutes and networks there to support them and help them as well. So we need the media to get people with disabilities and successful people and really share these stories so that kids today can belong and be a part of the community and don't go down the pathway of death by suicide and poor mental health purely because they're different in the way society treats them. We need to flip that coin. We need to have positive outcomes and get people coming and representing Australia and winning medals or just getting jobs with a disability and making a difference that way. And so advocacy is so important, and every Paralympian or person with a disability that is putting themselves out there to do that, I can't thank you enough for doing that.
Yeah, 100%. That's right. And being a woman in sport is hard enough. And then you add another layer of being a Paralympian or para athlete in sport. Tell us about how that looked, because while you were training for the Olympics, you were working a full-time job as a nurse. So what does that tell us about where we're at in society and how we value women in sport?
Yeah, just I think being female, you just always get on with it. You don't know any different, essentially. Yeah, it's hard. I think it's more just the challenges you face around that society kind of has as a female in sport. So, like, I work in a female dominated profession, which is great. So, I don't really notice anything with that. And I guess being in a mixed crew had some of its challenges as well, but it wasn't within the people who support my network. It was like society. So, things like we'd walk the boat down to the water and people would say hello to Jed, but then no one would say hello to me. And we're a couple of meters apart. So it just feels like you're no one, you don't have any value. It's just like moments like that are really hard to challenge with. And you've just got to remember, like, essentially those people don't really matter at the end of the day. It's about you being positive and trying to tell yourself that you are worth it and really, truly believe that you are worth it. And yeah, so I don't know where to go now. I'm completely lost my train of thought.
In those situations, how do you think others could have helped you?
It's just either like potentially calling out a behavior in the moment and say, oh, what about Nikki kind of a thing. Or it's just, I think as a lot of women we do at a time, you just it's stuck off, it's water off a duck's back, like it's more of a reflection on them than you. And it's being able to do that and just get to a point where you do have that self-worth and that recognition that at the end of the day, that doesn't matter too much. But when it happens time and time again, it can build up. And so then it's about that support network and talking, and then like talking to your psychologist about tools and whatnot. Because unfortunately, it's not going to just stop one day. And I think the biggest thing about being female that I've learned is I've got to believe in my self-worth. So that I can not let those things or other things that happen just because you're female and the sexism that you face affect you and stop you from doing what you want to do and achieve what you want to achieve.
Something that a past guest, Haley Campbell, said, which I think really resonated, is just it's the role that everyone plays in sexism in sport, right? Like,
Yeah.
you hear it all the time in footy that someone's playing like a girl, and then, the 5 people around the person who said that don't say anything, but they'll say, well,
Yeah.
I didn't say anything. I didn't do anything. But no, it's the silence is actually worse than the person saying it, because you are validating what they're saying and you're allowing it. It's always the old saying, the standard you walk past is the standard you accept. We can be doing so much more as allies, as role models, as people to call that shit out, because it doesn't have a place and it's destructive, and it's destructive for how, the world sees women, and it's destructive for our own safety. Like, you might just think it's a harmless comment, but that can manifest into something so much bigger. And you look at domestic violence rates and everything, it might only seem small, but walking by and allowing those little comments is actually really destructive.
Yeah, 100%. And it comes back to like essentially calling out that behavior, as you said. And but then it's hard as well because it's the timing around it. So if you're out at footy game and you're there and it's you and your other female friend and it's a bloke of 5 guys, Like, you're not safe in that environment to do it. So it's not just about the women, it's about the other men, the other friends just
Absolutely.
speaking out like, hey mate, that's not important. And like I like recently traveled to Australia, and the amount of people I met everywhere who watch women's sport instead of men's and they love it and they think it's so much better is great. But there's still like a long way to go with that. So it's just those little things that do make a huge difference in having those conversations. It's also for those people to be open to have a conversation, to have the understanding from, a female athlete's perspective or a female's perspective, and then for us to be able to understand them and have a conversation around it. So it's that openness to have a conversation and understand where they're coming from, why they think that. A lot of it is potentially a generational thing. That's how they've grown up, not seeing women as athletes and just, people who are a teacher or a nurse or just go have babies kind of a thing. So I think a big part is having conversations and being open to listening as well. And it's not like a you're right, I'm
Mm.
like you're wrong, I'm right conversation as well. I think that's where a lot of the change can start with that.
100%. Because, yeah, as you say, their dad might have been saying the same thing and their uncle, and, they just don't know what's right and wrong. So it's probably an education piece as much as anything. And
Yeah.
yeah, and it's another thing, like probably pulling them aside one on one instead of, calling them out in front of everyone too. It's a delicate situation, but yeah, it just needs to be
Yeah,
said.
totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, or go watch a women's game. Like, I still remember my eldest brother, him and my little brother, they came up and watched Megan and I play. I think it was a grand final one year. And he was like, you guys, like, you girls hit so hard. Like, you hit harder than us guys. Like, and they were so surprised at the physicality that we had in that game. And they loved it, and it was just them coming there and actually seeing it and seeing how we played as well to be able to appreciate that. So, for some people out there who are a bit judgmental of women's sport, just go watch it. Don't have the expectation that we should be playing at the same standard as men, because we're not. We're physically not the same, and we all know that, and no one is arguing that. Our games are played differently, and that's a lot of the reason why male spectators enjoy our games more,
Mm.
because they're not as tactical, or they're not as thought out, or they're not as slow, and we don't hold back. Like, I watched the State of Origin game the other week and just
Yeah.
loved the hits and just seeing the passion in that sport and the girls just getting out and doing it, and the men do the same thing, but it's a different type of game, and we need people in society to stop expecting us to play the same as the men, and we need to be given the opportunities for us to be able to play on the scale as the men,
Hmm.
so yeah.
Exactly. Because, well, women in footy, at least, we've only been playing professionally for 10 years. Men have been playing professionally for over 100 years. With X amount of funding, we can't expect to be at the same level as men,
Yep.
in 1/10 of the time.
Yep.
And as you say, it's going to be a completely different brand of footy because we are built different. And that's exciting because watching the State of Origin, the women's game, it's so much more free flowing than the men's game, and it's exciting
Yeah.
to watch. So, yeah,
Yeah.
don't judge us on, the men and how they're going, but judge us on how far we have progressed in those 10 years, in those 15 years, 5 years, however long it's been.
Yep. Yeah. And support us. Give us the opportunity to do better or grow into a game that you see us doing or you would want us to be. It's about supporting us. Go buy a membership, go to a local game, take your kids, take your grandkids there so you can see it. It's those little things that everyone can be doing to help support women's sport.
Mm. Now, we've sort of brushed over your whole rowing career here, so I do want to get into that. So,
Yeah.
within the space of 9 months of you trying out for rowing, for para
Mm.
rowing, you were at a world championship, and then you went to Tokyo and got fourth place, and that obviously lit a fire in you, and you went to Paris in 2024 and won gold. Give us a brief synopsis of your trajectory and your journey through rowing, and tell us ultimately how it felt after everything that's happened for you to then go and win
Yeah.
gold.
Well, the way I got into rowing was just completely by chance. I remember one of the ladies I played rugby with, she gave me the number to Karen Faulkner, who was a physio for Paralympics Australia, who's now the director of the South Australian Sports Institute. So it's been a really cool full circle moment when I came to SASI for the first time. And she was like, cool, go to this information session at the AAS for Train for Tokyo. And so I rocked up on crutches. I think I still had an external fixation with mum and dad, no idea what to expect, and just saw people with disabilities trying different sports and doing testing. And then I got a letter from Paralympics Australia and they're like, hey, Nikki, here's one of four sport. Well, here's four sports for you to go try. And they gave me a grant as well. And I didn't even know para sports. I didn't even know I was a person with disability then. And so it was like rowing and cycling, wheelchair tennis and wheelchair basketball. And because I'd been doing surf boats, I was like, well, why not get into rowing? One of my best friend's dad was a coach. And yeah, so then I ended up getting into rowing. And so that was like 2018. And then by January 2018, then I got selected for the World Championship team. And it was just like an absolute crazy 9 months for me because I had just lost so much in that. And rowing, it became a distraction. It became a challenge. It gave me something to work towards. And then getting selected for the Australian team, it was like this dream from a little girl wanting to represent Australia in the green and gold. I originally wanted to be an Olympic chook feeder, but then reality sank in that I was never going to do that. I was a very creative child. And going from that, then wanting to be a Wallaroo, but now being on that world stage and in green and gold zooty was incredible. And I was like, all right, there's potential here. And I'm someone who definitely always wants to be better and be the best that I can. So it was just natural. It's like, cool. All right, we've gone to World Championships. Let's be better. And that got me to the point that I went to Tokyo. And ever since like that doctor in the hospital bed told me like I was never going to walk again, I was like, I'll show you. It wasn't about finding out what I couldn't do after my injury. It was about finding out what I could do. And so 2018 or 2019, I ended up, I trekked Kokoda Track as well with my best
Wow.
friends and my partner at the time. And that was essentially, it was about finding out what I could do. It wasn't finding people tell me what I can't do or finding what I can't do with a disability. It was about going out there and challenging myself. And I did it. I trekked the whole Kokoda Track. Like it ended up being so hard and my skin graft broke down and I had a mad infection that I was dealing with. And was very lucky that it didn't develop into something worse, but I did that. And so it was like, okay, what's next? And then coming off Dakota, it was like Paralympian. That's the next thing for me. And so that was the goal and nothing was going to stop me. And nothing did stop me. In 2019, I didn't get selected at all for the Australian team. And I, considered just giving up rowing, but I didn't. I reflected and was like, okay, what can I do differently? How can I be better? And so I did that to the point that I got selected for Tokyo. And being over in Tokyo and crossing that finish line in the A final in the Paralympic Zudi was like, at that point, the proudest moment of my life, knowing what I'd been through, laying in a hospital bed 5 years earlier, thinking my whole life was over, that I had just become a Paralympian. We finished fourth in the world, like fourth in the world was amazing. And I was so happy in that moment. And then, so after that, I did my midwifery and my partner at the time, we moved away and I wasn't going back to rowing. And then unfortunately that relationship broke down. So I was like, all right, I need a distraction. And the double got announced for Paris. And so Jed and I had conversations and we left it for 12 months. I finished off my midwifery and he had to go have surgery and do stuff as well. And then it was just like stars aligned for us. And always we hopped in the boat for the first time as a double. And I remember that feeling like the boat just ran so nicely from the beginning. And like, oh, we've got something, like, let's go, let's give this a crack. And then that led to World Championships in 2023. Previous to that, the World Cup, we broke our world record and then we broke our own world record. And then we became world champions. And that was a really cool moment in time as well to realize our potential and that the hard work was paying off. So fast forward 12 months to Paris 2024, and we were there as, the favourites. So we had a big target on our backs and all this pressure, but we had the conversations about ignoring that, embracing it. It's there because we earned that. We were world's best holders, record holder, and world champions because we earned that. And then it was just about heads in the game. And Jed had his family there. His wife and kids were here in Australia, but I had my mum and dad and all my siblings and a very big group of friends that came over to Paris. And it was the first time my family get to watch me internationally as well. So it was a pretty important and pretty crazy moment sitting on that start line and knowing that they're all there watching us. And no matter what the result was, if it was, gold, silver, bronze or no medal, they were still doing so proud. And Jed and I, we had that conversations that as long as we were able to get out there, cross that finish line and know there was nothing else we could have done, no matter the result, we're going to be happy with that. And across that finish line, it was gold. It was Australia's first ever para rowing gold medal. And the first emotion, looking back, it's relief. It's relief that the race was over because there's so much hurt. You've never rowed so hard in your whole life. And when you get to the stands and you can hear that crowd cheering, it's just the adrenaline that kicks in and the lactate. I reckon the lactate just gets worse because it's hearing the cheering as well. And then it's like you finally have a breath. And I was like, Jen, we did it. Like we won gold. And it's just like so much pride and happiness and just like you can't explain all the emotions that go through you, but the joy that you're there in the green and gold with your family watching, you just achieved one of the greatest things that you could in that sport. And, you know, Jed had a traumatic injury as well and got his disability. And we both had overcome so much adversity and done this for ourselves, but our families and friends and for our country. And knowing that it's in the history books and it's never going to be taken away is one of the best things that we have. And we did it together, did it with a really good friend that hopefully, you know, we're friends for life. To have that and have family there was really, really awesome.
God, I'm getting emotional just hearing that. That's unbelievable, and I can't wait for the next
Yeah.
series to come out on that because there definitely should be. But I think what's so special about it, and I don't want to take anything away from an Olympian, but just having the element of being a Paralympian and all the adversity that you've overcome makes it even more special. And as you say, no one can ever take away from you that you are the first in Australia to win that gold. That's history
Yeah.
made. So that is
Yeah.
absolutely incredible.
Yeah. And like when you think about it, I think it was when I went on the female athlete project with Chloe Delton, she was like the first ever female para roll gold medalist. Like when you break it down like that, like that's a really, really crazy moment as well, you know, and so proud of it. And looking back at that, like there's nothing that I can change with like heart, but all I can have is just pride and joy and have that moment in time now as a Paralympic gold medalist. It's
Mm.
really cool. And it's definitely something that, you know, people always say I should be proud of it. And like, you know, when you meet someone, you should just tell them you're a gold medalist, Nikki. And I'm like, no, like it will come out in conversation kind of thing. But I definitely am proud of it. My nieces, whenever they meet someone, they're like, this is my auntie. She won a gold medal. You know, and then they're the moments that I really, really enjoy and appreciate and sit there and think, actually, no, I did do that. That's something to be super.
And your family must be so proud because it's also a medal for them, right? They were there with you the whole time. They saw you at your
Yeah.
worst, then they got to see you at your best. Like that's the thing.
Yep.
Everything in terms of an athlete, people just think it's the athlete who wins gold. It's your whole community who wins gold because they've been with you
Yep.
from the very start.
Yeah, that's it. And that's what meant so much having my family there. You know, one of my family members was like, oh, they're not going to come. Like, no, you're coming. Like, I'm paying for you. Like, I want you there. Like, I wanted my whole family to celebrate that moment, win or lose, because they had done so much. Without my family after my injury, I wouldn't have been able to make the most of it. I wouldn't have been there in Paris without them. And I don't know if they realized how much they did impact that journey for me. And I know a lot of the times I didn't tell them,
Mm.
you know, you just don't have the words at the point in time. But without just those text messages of like, you've got this, and those days where you're feeling down, and they're the ones reminding that you've got it, you've got an opportunity that they don't have. They're the things that make you appreciate it and want you to do it. And you definitely win that medal for your community. Like those hugs behind the grandstand with like those family, if you could bottle that emotion and that energy up, you would have champions. Like you wouldn't be unstoppable.
Mm.
And their hugs and like kisses and smiles that I'll never forget. And yeah, that's what it's about.
And even cooler that you got to share it with a teammate too who had also been through a lot.
Yeah, yeah, it was great. It was so fun. And yeah, and the celebrations are great. Like Olympians have shoeies, we have leggies. But yeah, just to be able to celebrate that and go back to the mob village and people you'd never met, just like who watched the race and so proud and coming up and congratulating you. So those moments that you realize the impact that does, and they can go have a conversation with someone with a disability and encourage them to do things and change their life as well. It's that stuff that you'll never know the full extent of, but you can just like be there, hold your head up, knowing that you have made a difference to someone's life.
Mm. Now, Jed retired in 2024, and you've only just recently announced your retirement. Was it hard trying to go back into it knowing that your best mate and someone who's literally been in the trenches with you had retired?
Yeah. Yes and no. Like I knew whatever I did, it was never going to be the same. And it wasn't about trying to find the same for me with that. So I don't think it was that hard in that respect, but it's something that will never be replicated. And I think you just have to, like, I just had to know that whatever I did next was never going to be the same without Jed. That was going to be something different. But that's also the exciting part of the journey as well. It's a new experience. It's a blank canvas again with that. And like when I made the announcement, like I had a phone call from Jen and his family and they're like, happy retirement, you know, like celebrated that. as well. So that was a really cool moment too. So yeah, now it's just figuring out what to put on this blank canvas for the next chapter.
Yes, absolutely. And, we've got Brisbane 2032 coming up. So I hope that we'll see you there in some regard, whether that be even as a supporter, but I can see in your eyes now that I think there's more to come. Watch this space.
Yeah, definitely. The plan would to be an athlete competing and hopefully win a medal on home soil would be the absolute pinnacle. I think my body can definitely hold up for a few more years.
I reckon it can too. It's already been through a lot. It's proved that it's a pretty well oiled machine. So you took some time away at the start of this year from sport and from your job. What did you find out about yourself or where you were at during that time off?
That's a good question. What I found out about myself is that I wasn't always putting myself first. I was so entrenched in routine, having my life dictated and putting the sport and this goal that I had in front of everything else and just lived off distractions. So I went home to mum and dad's for a few months and hung out with my family, and then I traveled Australia solo as well. And I learned about flexibility that, there are days where you can just do what you want when you want, which was like really awesome, amazing, and just being able to make the most of opportunities as well. But what I really weren't what learned was that like kind of the worthiness away from that medal is that I'm not just a gold medalist, is that I am a human and I really love the person that I am and I am worthy of what I've achieved, but I am not defined by that gold medal. And so now it's just kind of about finding what that next journey is to make me happy, find that I'm someone who definitely likes to be challenged. And I definitely get that from my work side of things. Every day is a new day and I get challenged in that regard and I'm always wanting to learn. So now on the sports side of thing, it's finding a new sport, but then having a new approach in it as well, where it's more about putting myself first and only doing something that I'm getting something from. And then once it starts taking away, I kind of have that knowledge and experience to ask myself, is this worth it? What is it taking away from me, but what is it giving to me as well? So I think just being able to find that self-worth and separate yourself from a medal and not thinking that you're only a medal was definitely what that time away gave me.
Mm. Do you feel having gotten the medal and having been an athlete your whole life that you've felt this pressure to continue being an athlete? Like, is there a world where you would just want to go and work on your arts and crafts or anything else? Or is that sort of ingrained in you?
Uh, it's definitely ingrained in me. It's more like, it was a conversation a couple of weeks ago. Someone was like, I'm not really sure what I want to do. Like, I really enjoy my nursing and midwifery. And there's so much opportunity there. Like, I love traveling, so I can go do travel contracts and stuff. But then someone was just like, Nikki, you can go do that whenever the opportunity to train and, go to LA or go to Brisbane and be the athlete of elite level, that opportunity is not going to be there forever. So
Mm.
it's figuring out in life that, I love my nursing and midwifery, but that's always going to be there. Like, that profession's not going anywhere. Where this opportunity to be the best athlete I can be and be fit and maintain that chance is not always going to be there as well. So I think it's just like figuring that out.
Yeah, definitely a balancing act. And I guess rowing, it gave you another identity, right? Once you lost your identity around rugby. And
Mm.
now that you sort of don't have rowing anymore, do you feel a gap in your identity as much as you did after you went through all your knee surgeries? Or do you now feel more confident and comfortable in yourself that you are Nikki and that sport is only one
Yeah.
piece of your puzzle?
Yeah. Definitely that. I definitely don't have the gap that I had before. And I think that's a lot related to the trauma that I had in 2016. Like, there was so much that happened in that tackle. It wasn't just three torn ligaments, a severed artery, and a severed nerve that, developed compartment syndrome. There was so much behind it mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually that happened. With taking that time away from sport where I was able to process and deal with a lot of stuff that I didn't realize, but also just really focus on me. And it is now, it's like, first and foremost, I'm Nikki. I'm a person, I'm a human. And I'm not just a gold medalist, and I don't think I definitely have that gap or that identity crisis now. So I think that's also what makes this next step more exciting as well. It's a different perspective. It's a different way that I'm going to be approaching this, and like a really amazing support team down here at Sassy as well that are just as excited as I am at as the opportunities that are coming. But I think definitely being happy with who I am and not having my identity solely as an athlete is
Mm,
something that's really exciting as well. And it's not easy to get to that point. You pour so much of your soul into sport for, 8 years. I was at the elite level for rowing as well. And it's like I'll always be a rower, always love rowing. But it's not who I am.
mm. Yeah, no, that definitely makes sense. And I think it's a very important lesson for a lot of the listeners to hear. And in that vein, because I want to respect your time, I could chat to you all day. But if a young girl is listening to this right now who's had an injury and she feels like it might end everything, what would you want to tell her? And not the motivational, inspirational quote stuff. What is the real advice that you'd want to give to
Yeah.
her?
The real advice is it sucks. Like it's so shit that this has happened to you right now, but you've got to write it, and if you are someone who believes in everything happens for a reason, it might, but don't try and fog it off that it's going to be okay, because at times it's not. You're not going to be okay. It's going to be hard, but if you want to make the most of this, you will make the most of this. You just have to figure out your way of doing it. So lean on your people, be vulnerable, because with that comes courage, and you'll get through it and you'll be able to make the most of it if that's what you want to do. Just be open to the opportunities that come. And I think just the biggest thing is being realistic that it does suck,
Mm.
and that's okay. It's like it's really okay to admit that.
Well, Nikki, thank you so much for jumping on the 4DG podcast today. I think if I looked up resilient in the Macquarie Dictionary, you would say Nikki Ayers, OAM PLY.
Thanks, Carly.
So, no, a really, really incredible story. And I'm so grateful that we got to share it with our listeners here today. And as I said to everyone, please pay the favor forward by sharing it with someone who needs to hear it, because every athlete, regardless of age, gender, ability, you should hear this. There's a lot of resilience and a lot of determination that got you to where you are. And I'm very excited to see what's next for Nikki. So thank you very much.
All right. Thanks for having me, Kylie. Appreciate it.
Thank you. We'll see you all next time. And this one was brought to you by Project Better. Thanks, Nikki.